The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Elena Rodriguez clutched her 6-month-old daughter Sophia closer to her chest, watching in disbelief as her supervisor, Amanda Foster, slid the termination papers across the break room table. The smell of stale coffee and microwaved lunches hung in the air, a stark contrast to the life-changing moment unfolding before her. "I'm sorry, Elena, but you've missed too many days this quarter," Amanda said, her voice cold and matter-of-fact. "The company policy is clear about attendance requirements." Elena's hands trembled as she looked at the papers, Sophia stirring restlessly in her arms. "Amanda, please, you know why I've been absent. Sophia was in the hospital with pneumonia for a week, and I had to take her to specialist appointments. I have all the medical documentation." "Documentation doesn't change the bottom line," Amanda interrupted, tapping her manicured nails against the table. "Greenfield Industries needs employees who can commit to being here consistently. Your personal situation, while unfortunate, cannot continue to impact productivity." The 26-year-old single mother felt her world crashing down around her. She had worked at the manufacturing company for 3 years, starting as a quality control inspector and working her way up to floor supervisor. The job provided health insurance for both her and Sophia, and losing it meant losing everything they depended on. "I've been with this company for 3 years, Elena pleaded, adjusting Sophia, who had begun to fuss. "My performance reviews have always been excellent. I just need a little understanding during this difficult time. Sophia's father isn't in the picture, and my mother works 2 jobs just to keep her own apartment." Amanda's expression remained unmoved. "I understand your circumstances are challenging, but business is business. We can't make exceptions, no matter how sympathetic the situation might be." Elena glanced around the break room, noticing how several of her co-workers had gathered near the doorway, their faces filled with concern and anger. Miguel Santos, a machine operator who had become like an older brother to her, stepped forward. "This is wrong, Amanda," Miguel said, his accented voice carrying decades of experience in the industry. "Elena is one of the hardest workers we have. She's never complained, never caused problems. You're punishing her for being a mother." "Stay out of this, Miguel," Amanda snapped. "This is between Elena and management." But Miguel wasn't backing down. "No, this affects all of us. If you can fire Elena for taking care of her sick baby, what's going to happen to the rest of us when we have family emergencies?" Other workers began murmuring in agreement. Janet Kim, an elderly woman who worked in packaging, shook her head in disgust. "I've been here 15 years, and I've never seen anything so heartless." Amanda stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the linoleum floor. "Everyone needs to get back to work. This meeting is over." She turned to Elena. "You have until the end of today to clear out your locker. Security will escort you out." Elena felt tears welling up in her eyes as she stood, Sophia now crying softly against her shoulder. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her like a physical force. Without this job, how would she pay rent? How would she afford Sophia's medical care? The thoughts spiraled through her mind as she walked toward her locker, her co-workers' sympathetic gazes following her every step. As she packed her few personal belongings, a small plant, some family photos, and a coffee mug Sophia had given her for Mother's Day, Elena tried to process what had just happened. The injustice of it all burned in her chest. She had given everything to this company, worked overtime when needed, covered for co-workers during their emergencies, and this was how they repaid her loyalty. Miguel appeared beside her locker, his weathered hands gentle as he helped her pack. "Elena, this isn't right. There has to be something we can do." "Like what?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Amanda made it clear the decision is final. "Maybe we should talk to someone higher up," suggested Janet, who had joined them. "Amanda doesn't own this company. There are people above her." Elena shook her head, defeated. "You know how these things work. Management sticks together. Even if I complained, who would believe my word over Amanda's?" As she closed her locker for the last time, the metallic clang echoed through the hallway like a funeral bell. Sophia had finally settled down, but Elena could feel her own emotional dam about to burst. She had to stay strong, at least until she got home. The security guard, an older man named Frank, who had always been kind to her, approached with obvious reluctance. "Elena, I'm sorry about this. I really am. You're good people." "Oh, thank you, Frank," Elena managed to say, her throat tight with emotion. As they walked toward the exit, more co-workers stopped what they were doing to offer words of support and encouragement. The genuine concern from her colleagues warmed her heart, even as her future looked increasingly bleak. But what Elena didn't know was that her termination had set in motion a chain of events that would reach the very top of Greenfield Industries. Marcus Greenfield, the company's founder and CEO, was currently in a board meeting on the 15th floor, completely unaware that one of his employees had just been fired for caring for her sick child. The 58-year-old businessman had built his company from the ground up over the past 20 years, starting with a small machine shop and growing it into a manufacturing empire that employed over 800 people. But success hadn't hardened his heart. Having grown up in poverty himself, raised by a single mother who worked multiple jobs to keep food on the table, Marcus had always insisted that Greenfield Industries be a company that valued its employees as human beings, not just assets. As Elena walked out of the building for the last time, cradling Sophia and carrying a small box of her belongings, she had no idea that her story was about to reach someone who would care deeply about the injustice she had just experienced. The afternoon sun felt harsh against her face as she loaded Sophia into her car, her hands shaking as she buckled the car seat. "What are we going to do now, baby girl?" she whispered to Sophia, who looked up at her with innocent brown eyes that seemed to hold all the trust in the world. Elena sat in her car for several minutes, trying to gather the strength to drive home and face the reality of unemployment. She pulled out her phone and called her mother, Carmen, who answered on the second ring. "Mija, what's wrong? You sound upset." Through tears, Elena explained what had happened. Carmen's reaction was immediate and fierce. "That woman has no heart. After everything you've done for that company. I don't know what I'm going to do, Mama. The rent is due next week and Sophia needs her medication refilled. Without insurance, you listen to me, Elena." Carmen's voice was strong and determined. "You are not alone in this. We will figure it out together. You come home right now, and we'll make a plan." As Elena finally started her car and pulled out of the Greenfield Industries parking lot, she felt a mixture of despair and determination. She had no idea that her departure had been witnessed by several employees who were already planning to take action on her behalf. Miguel Santos pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found the number for the company's ethics hotline. Janet Kim was already composing an email to Human Resources, detailing what they had witnessed. And in the packaging department, word was spreading quickly about Elena's unfair dismissal. The seeds of change had been planted, and they would soon grow into something that would shake Greenfield Industries to its very core. Elena Rodriguez's fight for justice was just beginning, though she didn't know it yet. As she drove home to an uncertain future, the wheels of corporate accountability were already beginning to turn. The story of a single mother's courage and a company's conscience was about to unfold in ways that would surprise everyone involved, including Marcus Greenfield himself. Sometimes the most powerful changes begin with a single act of injustice witnessed by people who refuse to stay silent. Elena's ordeal was far from over, but she was about to discover that she had more allies than she realized, and that sometimes the truth has a way of reaching the right ears at exactly the right time. Elena sat at her small kitchen table that evening, Sophia finally asleep in her crib, surrounded by bills and job listings she'd printed from the public library. The apartment felt smaller than usual, the walls seeming to close in as reality set in. She had enough savings to cover maybe 1 month of expenses, and that was if she stretched every dollar. Her phone buzzed with a text from Miguel. "Don't give up, Elena. Some of us are working on something. We'll call you tomorrow." She appreciated the support, but what could her co-workers really do? Amanda Foster had made it clear that the decision was final, and Elena knew how these corporate hierarchies worked. The people at the bottom had very little power to change decisions made by management. Meanwhile, 15 floors above where Elena had been terminated, Marcus Greenfield was finishing up a late evening in his office, reviewing quarterly reports and employee satisfaction surveys. The numbers looked good on paper, but Marcus had learned long ago that numbers didn't always tell the whole story about what was happening on the factory floor. His assistant, Patricia Walsh, knocked on his door. "Mr. Greenfield, I know it's late, but there's something you should see. I just received an email from our ethics hotline that I think requires immediate attention." Patricia, a woman in her 40s who had worked for Marcus for over 10 years, had a serious expression that immediately caught his attention. She had seen a lot during her tenure, and rarely did anything rattle her composure. "What is it, Patricia?" "An employee was terminated today under circumstances that seem questionable. A single mother named Elena Rodriguez was fired for missing work to care for her sick infant. Several employees have filed complaints, and the details are troubling." Marcus frowned, setting down the report he'd been reading. "Tell me everything." Patricia handed him a folder containing printed emails from the ethics hotline, witness statements from employees, and Elena's personnel file. As Marcus read through the material, his expression grew increasingly grave. Elena Rodriguez's file showed 3 years of exemplary service, consistently high performance ratings, and 0 disciplinary actions prior to recent attendance issues. The medical documentation clearly showed that her absences were related to her daughter's hospitalization and follow-up care. But what truly angered Marcus was reading Amanda Foster's termination notes, which made no mention of Elena's circumstances or any attempt to work with her on alternative arrangements. "This is unacceptable," Marcus said quietly, but Patricia could hear the steel in his voice. "We have family leave policies for exactly these situations. Why weren't they applied?" According to the employees who contacted us, Mrs. Foster stated that business is business and that no exceptions could be made for personal circumstances. Marcus stood up and walked to his window, looking down at the parking lot where Elena had sat in her car just hours earlier, trying to figure out how to survive. He thought about his own mother, Rosa Greenfield, who had cleaned office buildings at night while he slept, who had missed school events because she couldn't afford to take time off work, who had sacrificed everything to give him opportunities she never had. "Get me everything we have on Amanda Foster's management decisions over the past year," Marcus instructed, "and I want to review our current family leave policies with HR first thing in the morning. Should I reach out to Mrs. Rodriguez?" "Not yet. I want to understand the full scope of this situation before we take action. But Patricia," he turned to face his assistant, "make sure we have her contact information ready. If what I'm reading here is accurate, we have a lot to make right." The next morning, Elena woke up to Sophia's cries and the harsh reality of unemployment. She had spent most of the night applying for jobs online, but most positions either didn't offer the flexibility she needed as a single mother or paid significantly less than what she'd been earning at Greenfield Industries. Her phone rang as she was feeding Sophia breakfast. It was Miguel. "Elena, you need to know something. A bunch of us filed complaints with the company's ethics hotline yesterday. We also sent emails to HR." Elena felt a flutter of hope mixed with anxiety. "Miguel, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I don't want you getting in trouble because of me." "Too late for that, Hermana. Janet, Carlos, Frank from security, even some people from other departments, we're all talking about what happened. People are upset, Elena, really upset. But will it make any difference? I don't know, but we have to try. You know what really gets to me? Amanda fired you, but she kept Rodriguez from maintenance, who's been late every day this month because he's been gambling again. She kept Johnson, who everyone knows has been stealing supplies. But you get fired for taking care of your sick baby." Elena felt tears forming again. The injustice of it all was overwhelming, but knowing that her co-workers were willing to stand up for her gave her strength she didn't know she had. "Whatever happens, Miguel, thank you. All of you. Don't thank us yet. Let's see what comes of this first." That same morning, Marcus Greenfield was sitting across from Amanda Foster in the conference room adjacent to his office. Amanda had been called to an emergency meeting, though she hadn't been told what it was about. She sat confidently in her chair, assuming it was probably about production numbers or some other routine matter. Marcus had spent the early morning hours reviewing Amanda's management decisions over the past 2 years, and what he'd found disturbed him greatly. Elena Rodriguez wasn't the first employee to be treated harshly under circumstances that called for compassion. There was a pattern of inflexibility and lack of empathy that ran counter to everything Greenfield Industries was supposed to stand for. "Amanda, I want to discuss the termination of Elena Rodriguez yesterday." Amanda's confident demeanor faltered slightly, but she quickly recovered. "Oh yes, that was unfortunate but necessary. She'd exceeded our attendance policy limits, and I had to make a difficult but business-appropriate decision." "Tell me about the circumstances surrounding her absences." "Well, she claimed her child was ill, but we can't make exceptions for everyone's personal problems. If we did, where would it end?" Marcus leaned forward, his voice carefully controlled. "Amanda, did you review Mrs. Rodriguez's personnel file before making this decision?" "Of course I did. Like I said, she exceeded the attendance." "Did you note that she's been an exemplary employee for 3 years, that her performance reviews have been outstanding, that she's never had a single disciplinary issue?" Amanda shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Performance doesn't excuse attendance problems." "Did you review the medical documentation she provided, showing that her 6-month-old daughter was hospitalized with pneumonia?" "I glanced at it, but company policy is—" "Amanda," Marcus interrupted, his patience finally wearing thin. "Did you consider our family medical leave policies? Did you explore alternative arrangements? Did you show any consideration whatsoever for the fact that this woman was dealing with a medical emergency involving her infant child?" The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Amanda realized she was in serious trouble, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. "Mr. Greenfield, I was hired to manage productivity and maintain standards. I can't let emotions cloud business decisions." Marcus stood up slowly, his jaw set. "Amanda, I built this company on the principle that our employees are human beings, not machines. They have families, they have emergencies, they have lives outside these walls. What you did yesterday wasn't a business decision, it was cruel." "I was following company policy." "No, you weren't. You ignored company policy. We have family leave provisions specifically for situations like Elena Rodriguez's. You chose not to use them." Marcus walked to his desk and picked up a folder. "I've been reviewing your management decisions over the past 2 years, Amanda. This isn't an isolated incident. You've consistently shown a lack of compassion and flexibility that's completely at odds with our company values." Amanda's face had gone pale. "Are you questioning my performance? My department has met every productivity goal. Productivity built on the backs of scared, overworked people isn't success, Amanda. It's exploitation." Marcus returned to his seat and looked directly at Amanda. "Elena Rodriguez was fired yesterday for being a devoted mother. Today, I'm asking for your resignation for being a heartless manager." The words hit Amanda like a physical blow. "You can't be serious. I've been with this company for 5 years, and in those 5 years, you've forgotten what it means to treat people with dignity and respect. I won't have managers who think employees are disposable." Amanda's shock quickly turned to anger. "This is ridiculous. You're going to fire me over some single mother who can't manage her personal life?" The comment was the final straw for Marcus. His voice became ice cold. Get out of my office. Security will escort you out, and HR will handle the paperwork. You're terminated immediately. As Amanda stormed out, slamming the conference room door behind her, Marcus felt a mixture of anger and sadness. He hated having to fire people, but he hated injustice more. Now came the harder task, making things right with Elena Rodriguez. Patricia appeared in the doorway. How did it go? Amanda Foster is no longer with the company. Now I need you to get Elena Rodriguez on the phone. We have a lot to apologize for. 20 minutes later, Elena's phone rang. She was sitting on her couch, Sophia on her lap, still in her pajamas, because she couldn't see the point of getting dressed when she had nowhere to go. Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Patricia Walsh from the office of Marcus Greenfield, CEO of Greenfield Industries. Mr. Greenfield would like to speak with you if you have a moment. Elena's heart started racing. Yes, of course. One moment, please. Elena's hands were shaking as she waited. Sophia looked up at her with curious eyes, sensing her mother's tension. Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Marcus Greenfield. Elena had never spoken directly to the CEO before. His voice was warm but serious. Mr. Greenfield, if this is about the complaint some of my coworkers filed, I want you to know I didn't ask them to. Mrs. Rodriguez, you have nothing to apologize for. I'm calling to apologize to you. What happened yesterday was completely unacceptable, and it doesn't represent the values this company was built on. Elena felt tears welling up in her eyes. I don't understand. I've reviewed your termination and it was wrong, completely wrong. Amanda Foster is no longer with the company, and I'd like to offer you your position back, along with a formal apology from Greenfield Industries. Elena couldn't speak for a moment. Sophia gurgled happily in her arms, oblivious to the life-changing phone call happening around her. Mrs. Rodriguez, are you there? Yes, I'm here. I can't believe this is happening. There's more. I want to offer you the position Amanda Foster held, Supervisor of Quality Control. It comes with a significant salary increase and better benefits. More importantly, it comes with my personal commitment that you'll never again be penalized for putting your family first. Elena began crying openly now, tears of relief and gratitude streaming down her face. Mr. Greenfield, I don't know what to say. Say you'll give us another chance to be the kind of company we should have been all along. Yes, Elena whispered. Yes, absolutely. Wonderful. Can you come in Monday morning? I'd like to meet with you personally to discuss your new role and make sure we have all the support systems in place for you to succeed. After hanging up, Elena held Sophia close and let herself cry tears of joy for the first time in months. She thought about calling Miguel, calling her mother, sharing the incredible news, but first she just wanted to sit with her daughter and savor this moment of unexpected hope. Sunday evening, Elena stood in front of her bathroom mirror, preparing for her return to Greenfield Industries. Sophia was spending the night with Carmen, so Elena could focus on her first day in her new position. She looked at her reflection and saw something she hadn't seen in a long time. Confidence. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Miguel. Elena, I heard the news from Frank in security. Amanda's gone, and you're coming back as a supervisor. I still can't believe it's real, Miguel. It's real, Hermana. And you know what the best part is? Everyone's talking about it. Word is spreading that Mr. Greenfield really does care about his employees. People are walking a little taller today. Elena smiled, feeling the truth in Miguel's words. I just hope I can do a good job. Being a supervisor is a big responsibility. Are you kidding? You're going to be amazing. You know what it's like to struggle, to need understanding. You're going to be the kind of manager who remembers that we're all human. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear. Elena walked through the front doors of Greenfield Industries, feeling like she was entering a completely different building than the one she'd been escorted out of just days earlier. Employees she passed offered smiles and words of congratulation. The energy in the building felt different somehow, more hopeful. Marcus Greenfield was waiting for her in his office, and Elena was struck by how different he was from what she'd imagined. He was tall and distinguished, but his eyes were kind, and his handshake was warm and genuine. "Mrs. Rodriguez, welcome back. Please have a seat." Elena sat down, still somewhat overwhelmed by the surreal nature of the situation. "I want to start by saying again how sorry I am for what you went through. As the leader of this company, the buck stops with me. Amanda Foster's actions were a failure of leadership, and that failure starts at the top. Mr. Greenfield, you don't need to—" "Yes, I do, because I want you to understand that what happened to you has forced me to take a hard look at our policies and our management culture. We're implementing changes to make sure this never happens again." Marcus handed her a folder. "These are the details of your new position, salary, and benefits. But I want to talk about something more important than paperwork. I want to talk about leadership." Eleanor opened the folder and saw numbers that made her catch her breath. The salary increase was substantial, and the benefits package included enhanced family medical coverage and flexible scheduling options. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I didn't promote you just to make up for Amanda's mistake. I promoted you because your co-workers' testimonials about you were extraordinary. They described someone who works hard, treats everyone with respect, and never asks for anything she hasn't earned. Those are the qualities I want in my managers." "I've never been in management before," Elena admitted. "That's not always a disadvantage. Sometimes people who've never been managers remember better what it's like to be managed. I have a feeling you're going to bring exactly the kind of leadership this department needs." Marcus stood up and walked to his window, looking down at the factory floor. "You know, I started this company because I believed business could be done differently. I believed you could be profitable while still treating people with dignity. Amanda Foster made me question whether I was naive to think that way." He turned back to Eleanor. "But watching how your co-workers rallied around you, seeing their courage in standing up for what was right, reminded me why I started this company in the first place. People like Miguel Santos and Janet Kim and Frank Williams, they didn't just stand up for you, they stood up for the idea that work should be a place where human beings support each other." Elena felt tears forming in her eyes again. "They're good people, all of them. Yes, they are. And now they're your people to lead. I trust you to remember what it felt like to need understanding and compassion." As Elena left Marcus's office with her new employment packet, she felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. But it wasn't a burden. It was an opportunity to be the kind of manager she wished she'd had when she was struggling. An opportunity to create a workplace where being a devoted mother wasn't seen as a liability, but as evidence of the kind of caring character that makes someone a great employee. Her first day as quality control supervisor was everything she'd hoped for and more. Her former co-workers, now her team, welcomed her with enthusiasm and respect. Miguel pulled her aside during lunch. "Eleanor, I want you to know something. What happened to you and what Mr. Greenfield did about it. It's changed this place. People feel like their voices matter now, like someone's actually listening. I hope I can live up to everyone's expectations. You already have, just by being who you are." That evening, Elena picked up Sophia from her mother's house, eager to share her first day's stories with her daughter, even though Sophia was too young to understand the words. As she drove home, Elena reflected on the incredible turn her life had taken in just 1 week. She thought about the moment when Amanda Foster had slid those termination papers across the table, how hopeless and scared she'd felt. She thought about her co-workers who'd refused to stay silent when they witnessed an injustice. She thought about Marcus Greenfield, a CEO who'd chosen to prioritize human dignity over corporate convenience. And she thought about her own journey from victim to survivor to leader. At home, she put Sophia in her high chair and began preparing dinner, telling her daughter about her day as she worked. "You know what I learned today, baby girl?" Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best opportunities we never could have imagined. Mama got fired for taking care of you, but that led to Mama getting promoted to a job where she can help other mamas and papas who need understanding. Sophia babbled happily, as if she understood perfectly. Elena's phone rang. It was Carmen. "Mija, how was your first day as a supervisor?" "It was wonderful, Mama. Really wonderful. I keep expecting to wake up and find out it was all a dream." "It's not a dream, Elena. It's what you deserved all along. You just had to go through something hard to get people to notice. I'm going to work so hard, Mama. I'm going to make sure no one in my department ever has to choose between their job and their family." "I know you will, Mija. And that little girl of yours is going to grow up watching her mama be a leader. That's a gift you're giving her that no one can ever take away." After dinner, as Elena gave Sophia her bath, she thought about the future for the first time in months without feeling anxious. She had a good job with a company that valued her as a person. She had health care for her daughter. She had respect from her colleagues and the trust of her CEO. Most importantly, she had hope. As she tucked Sophia into her crib, Elena whispered a prayer of gratitude for the chain of events that had led to this moment. She was grateful for her co-workers who'd had the courage to speak up. She was grateful for Marcus Greenfield's integrity and leadership. And yes, in a strange way, she was even grateful for Amanda Foster's cruelty, because it had revealed who she really had supporting her. "Sweet dreams, baby girl," she whispered to Sophia. "Tomorrow Mama's going to work at making sure other babies' mamas get to come home happy too." In the weeks that followed, Elena's department became known throughout Greenfield Industries as one of the most productive and positive work environments in the company. She implemented flexible scheduling policies that allowed parents to attend school events and medical appointments. She created mentorship programs that helped new employees adjust to their roles. Most importantly, she never forgot what it felt like to be vulnerable and in need of understanding. Marcus Greenfield made it a point to visit Elena's department regularly, not to micromanage, but to see firsthand the positive culture she was building. During one visit, he watched her handle a situation with a young father whose son had been injured at school. Instead of lecturing about attendance policies, Elena worked with him to adjust his schedule so he could be at the hospital while still meeting his work responsibilities. "You know," Marcus told Patricia later, "firing Amanda Foster and promoting Elena Rodriguez might be the best business decision I've ever made. Productivity is up, morale is up, and turnover is down. Turns out treating people like human beings is actually good for the bottom line." Elena's transformation from terminated employee to respected supervisor became something of a legend at Greenfield Industries. New hires heard the story as part of their orientation, not as company propaganda, but as genuine evidence that their employer valued character over convenience. Miguel, now one of Elena's floor supervisors, often told new employees, "This company fired Elena Rodriguez for being a good mother, but then it fired the manager who did it and promoted Elena instead. That tells you everything you need to know about where your loyalty should lie." 6 months after her termination and rehiring, Elena received an unexpected phone call. It was from a local business magazine wanting to interview her for an article about innovative management practices. Word of her leadership style and the positive changes in her department had spread beyond Greenfield Industries. "Mrs. Rodriguez, we understand you've created one of the most employee-friendly departments in the region, while also maintaining high productivity standards. Can you tell us your secret?" Elena laughed softly. "It's not really a secret. I just remember what it felt like to be treated badly, and I make sure I treat people the way I wish I'd been treated." The article, titled "Leading with Heart: How One Manager's Journey from Termination to Triumph is Changing Corporate Culture," was published 2 months later and picked up by several national business publications. Elena found herself invited to speak at management conferences about creating compassionate workplace cultures. At one conference, during the Q&A session after her presentation, a CEO from the audience asked, "Mrs. Rodriguez, don't you think there's a risk that being too accommodating will lead employees to take advantage of management's kindness?" Elena thought for a moment before answering. "In my experience, when you treat people with dignity and respect, they respond with loyalty and hard work. The employees who might take advantage of kindness are usually the ones who've been treated poorly for so long that they've stopped trusting their employers. When you build trust, you get trustworthy behavior in return." The audience applauded, and afterward, several managers approached Elena to share their own stories and ask for advice. She realized that her experience at Greenfield Industries wasn't unique. There were managers everywhere trying to balance human compassion with business objectives. One evening, after returning from a conference in Chicago, Elena was putting Sophia to bed when her daughter, now a year old and starting to say her first words, looked up at her and said clearly, "Mama, work." Elena smiled and hugged her daughter close. "Yes, baby, Mama works. But you know what? Mama works at a place where people understand that being your mama is the most important job I'll ever have." As Sophia drifted off to sleep, Elena reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this point. A year ago, she'd been a single mother struggling to balance work and parenting, living paycheck to paycheck and terrified of what would happen if she lost her job. Today, she was a respected leader, a sought-after speaker, and most importantly, a mother who could provide security and opportunity for her daughter. But perhaps the most meaningful change wasn't in Elena's circumstances. It was in the culture at Greenfield Industries itself. The company had always claimed to value its employees, but Elena's story had forced everyone, from the CEO to the newest hire, to examine what that really meant in practice. Marcus Greenfield often credited Elena with helping him rediscover the principles that had inspired him to start the company in the first place. During his annual address to all employees, he said, "Elena Rodriguez taught us that our true measure as a company isn't just our profits or our productivity. It's how we treat each other when times get tough. She showed us that sometimes the people who need our understanding the most are the ones who deserve our respect the most." Elena was in the audience that day, holding Sophia on her lap. As her colleagues gave her a standing ovation, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the twists of fate that had led to this moment. She thought about Amanda Foster, whom she'd heard was working for a competitor and still struggling with her authoritarian management style. Elena felt no anger toward her former supervisor, only sadness that Amanda had never learned the joy that comes from lifting others up instead of tearing them down. The story of Elena Rodriguez became more than just a tale of workplace justice. It became a reminder that sometimes our greatest challenges can become our greatest opportunities if we have the courage to stand up for what's right and the wisdom to recognize allies when they appear. And sometimes the most powerful changes in the world begin not with grand gestures or sweeping policies, but with a single mother holding her baby, refusing to accept that her love for her child should cost her the means to care for that child. Elena's courage to be vulnerable, her co-workers' courage to speak truth to power, and Marcus Greenfield's courage to admit his company could do better, had created ripple effects that extended far beyond the walls of one manufacturing plant. Years later, when business schools taught case studies about transformational leadership and when management experts wrote about creating human-centered workplaces, they often referenced the Elena Rodriguez story. But Elena herself was more proud of the smaller daily victories, the single father in her department who knew he could leave early for his daughter's soccer games, the grandmother who could take time off to care for her elderly mother, the young couple who didn't have to choose between attending their baby's first doctor's appointment and keeping their jobs. These were the real measures of success, Elena had learned. Not the magazine articles or the conference invitations, but the knowledge that every day she was helping create a workplace where being human wasn't seen as a weakness, but as the strength that makes everything else possible. And in the end, that lesson proved to be worth more than any salary increase or promotion could ever be. It was a lesson that would shape not just Elena's career, but the future of everyone fortunate enough to work under her leadership. The woman who had been fired for being a devoted mother had become a manager who ensured that devotion to family was seen as an asset, not a liability. That transformation from victim to victor, from employee to leader, from despair to hope, proved that sometimes the most beautiful stories are the ones that begin with the words, "It seemed like the end, but it was really just the beginning." If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to hear more tales of courage, justice, and the power of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that even in our darkest moments, allies can emerge from unexpected places, and justice, while sometimes delayed, often finds a way to prevail. Remember that behind every corporate policy and management decision are real people with real families, and that the measure of our success as a society lies in how we treat those who are struggling to do their best in difficult circumstances.